Happy Sunday evening. That's when I upload the episodes. You might be watching it on Monday morning, and that's okay, because I want you to watch it whenever you watch it. Welcome once again, or for the first time ever. I am Jared Johnson, the Jared J. And joining me for today's discussion, Talmadge Roger Varnado the third. Welcome back once again, Talmadge.
It's good to be back once again, Jared.
Indubitably good to have you here. So we're going to be talking a little bit about the National Football League today. The 2024 draft was a few months ago now, so we now know where all these players went.
Right.
And this draft class was looked at kind of as a consensus, really heavy on quarterbacks and receivers and offensive linemen. Going into the draft, there's a lot of talk of, man, there's just not a lot of elite running backs. There were some pretty good ones, and we're going to talk about some of them today. I get why the Marvin Harrisons and Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels got the more attention, and Brock Bowers and Joe Alt. We're going to talk about 5 running backs today that are rookies this year and where they got drafted and kind of what our outlook is for where they landed. Is it a good spot for them, and just how we feel about not only the rookie year, but also kind of going beyond. So I'll start with the guy that was the first running back drafted this year, Jonathan Brooks, running back from the University of Texas. He only had one really big year at Texas, but he also was on the depth chart behind guys like Roschon Johnson and Bijan Robinson. So it's okay to be third best or borderline second best when Bijan Robinson's on the team. Jonathan Brooks, in his 1 year that he started, was dominant.
Yes.
Not quite Bijan level in my opinion, but he was awesome. He was a great running back for the Longhorns. Did tear his ACL at the end of last season, so that's going to set him back a little bit. He did get drafted by the Carolina Panthers, and going into this year's draft, I did say, in my opinion, number one, Carolina needs to surround Bryce Young with some better talent, and I'd be drafting one of these running backs. I was like, the guys they have, Chuba Hubbard, Miles Sanders, I'm not going to say anything against him personally because I don't know him personally. All I will say is,
Well, they're second and third backs in a committee of backs. That's what they are.
yeah, they're second and third backs in a committee of backs, and they might would do better selling insurance. I don't know for sure. Jonathan Brooks is a guy that I think once he's healthy should have no problem taking over that backfield. But Talmadge, what do you see taking into account the ACL injury, the other guys on the roster? How do you feel about Jonathan Brooks going to the Panthers? Was it a good move for them? Good landing spot for Brooks?
We're very much along the same lines. I feel like if running backs were valued like they used to be, and he hadn't had the injury, he's a first-round pick, possibly even a top 10
I don't
pick.
think there's any doubt.
He's that good of a back, but because of the time that we're in and the injury, obviously he dropped. The things he does well are going to help any team. He's got good acceleration. He can change direction. He can catch it a little bit, but he needs to improve there. But he's got the skill set to be better at that as he progresses.
He's got the
in the
elusiveness
league.
and, like you said, the burst when he gets in the open field.
Some things that he's not so great at. He's not as powerful as you would like. Sometimes he tends to avoid contact, and he doesn't always hit the hole hard. So those are things that are going to hold him back a little bit, but we're talking specifically about how he fits with this team. I go back to what you said originally. They just need weapons.
Yes.
And am I convinced he's a weapon? Yes. Am I convinced he can be a Pro Bowl back? Yes. Am I convinced that we're going to look back years from now and see what value he was where he was taken? I would say yes.
I think so.
Overall, I think if the fit is good, I won't say great because that's also an organization that's got to change their whole culture. And a lot of times young players go to bad football teams and they don't get any better because of the culture.
And they get frustrated and burnt out.
Exactly.
Or they just don't progress like they could.
And you don't know how he's going to recoup from the injury, but that would be no matter where he went. So
right.
If I had to put it on a scale of 1 to 10, I'd say the fit's like a 7.
Okay. And to me, and I kind of touched on this, I think, and he's already been announced as being on the physically unable to perform list to start the season. If you were shocked by that, you shouldn't have been.
Right.
He had an ACL tear near the end of last year. And I may have told you this off camera. I expect he may sit the first 8 games this year.
I would suspect he would.
Because why would you? First of all, you're not competing for the Super Bowl. You're hoping to improve. You got a young guy that you want to get fully healthy. You do have 2 running backs that I've already said aren't great. but who cares? They're serviceable, at least in tandem, while Bryce Young's developing. Let Jonathan Brooks get fully healthy and then unleash him. I don't care if you don't play him until week 10 of this year and we don't see a full value to next year.
That's what'll happen,
That's still, in my opinion, a good investment. I'd rather do that than force him back and let him get injured again, or just him not be
and
as
it's
productive.
Still enough time to see what you've got, because you know he's going to be better the following year anyway, because he's still coming off. Because
he's improving.
So you just want him to get out there the last 5 or 6 games of the year so he can get hit
a
again,
feel for the
get
NFL.
a feel for it again, know the playbook, see what you got instinctively, and then build on that the following year anyway.
Couldn't agree more. And look at Breece Hall.
Yeah, exactly.
He tore his ACL, started out last season not doing that great, was on a terrible team. Look how he finished the year.
He's got a chance to be
And this year he's got a chance to be the best running back in the league, along with the aforementioned B. John Robinson.
Yes.
Getting a little bit off track there, but a topic within a topic is sort of our specialty here.
That's how we do it.
But yeah, Jonathan Brooks sounds like we're pretty well in agreement. The second guy, Trey Benson, to the Arizona Cardinals. I think he's 6 foot-ish, 216, 215, 216. Runs, I think, a 4.4 or slightly faster 40 time. Did play at Florida State. Is going to the Arizona Cardinals, who already has James Conner. How do you feel about this one, Talmadge? Is it a good fit for him? Was it a good move for the Cardinals to draft him?
It's a good fit, but again, I struggle a little bit because we don't know what their offense is going to be. Because the quarterback's just now getting healthy. It's a young coach. We saw a taste of it last year.
Yes.
But we didn't get to really see it in full effect because, again, they didn't have all the weapons you would want.
Right.
Now, I think he's a good player. I think he's got a chance to be the best back in this draft. I would still go with Brooks, but I think he's got a chance to be the best back in this draft.
If anybody does, it's him.
I've got one more later that I might add to that list.
Okay.
But he's got a chance. He's got good size, good speed, good acceleration. He's a better downhill runner than Brooks is. And he's a good receiver out of the backfield. And in that offense, I think that's going to help. You've got a smaller quarterback, but he can move around. He does have the strong arm. So, again, it gives another weapon. So I would say this is, again, a 7, a good, strong fit, a good player. I wish I knew more about their scheme and their system so I could really answer this question more succinctly. But just based on talent and what that team needed. Because Connor, to me, has had a good career. Especially moving to Arizona, which I didn't think he was that great a player in Pittsburgh. He had some good years.
He's been better in Arizona.
Yeah, exactly. But he's better than I thought he would be in Arizona. But I still think he's the type of back that needs another running back in the backfield. So I can see why they drafted him. I'll say a 7 right now, but a 7 with an arrow, with a bullet.
Okay.
It can go higher than that.
And I was going to bring up that point because in a previous episode, we were talking and you were saying there's just not that many workhorse backs. And I just, off the top of my head, I did bring up James Conner. And you said, well, he's a workhorse out of necessity.
Right.
So I was going to ask you, do you still
and that's why it's a good fit for that. Oh, no question. And like I say, I like this guy's potential too. Again, just not knowing the offense because that coach only been, I think, 1 year. His quarterback wasn't healthy that year.
And Kyler Murray played less than half the year. Trey McBride came on the last half of the year. Now they've got Marvin Harrison. There's a lot of pieces that haven't gelled that could gel.
And that's what I'm saying. Down the road, I could look back at the 7. Why did I rate it that low? So it's got the potential to be better, but right now I'm saying 7.
What we can say right now. To me, I've got a similar outlook, but my first thought, honestly, was there's other teams that probably could have used him sooner. Because I get that James Conner's 28 or 29. I get that he's had some injuries. He's had a lot of usage. But he's still pretty darn good, if I'm being honest. The guy missed 4 games last year with a knee injury. Still had over 1,000 yards. Averaged 5 yards a carry. Finished the season really strong. He's a strong runner. He does have a lot of usage, but they've used him as a workhorse. He's not a superstar workhorse, but he's a workhorse running back. Gets a lot of volume. He's a strong runner, breaks tackles. I think he's got some good years left. So for this season, I don't have real high expectations for Trey Benson. Now, if Connor gets hurt, hey, he may take off and explode on some people. Also, we may see some tandem. I don't think it should be a 50-50 split, in my opinion. I think Connor's, maybe this sounds cliche, I think he's earned the right to keep getting the bulk of the load. Just my opinion. And I think he's got enough left in him that I would utilize Trey Benson. But it's still James Conner's backfield if I'm running that team. But Connor's in the final year of a 3-year deal. So maybe 2025, you decide to trade him or let him test free agency, and now you've got Trey Benson. So I think it's a very good investment into their future. If I'm being totally honest, my initial reaction when they drafted him was, but why would they do that? Like, it took me a moment to go, okay, I get it. Like, we are looking ahead. Right away, I was like, this guy could probably start as a rookie, and he's not really in a position to do that here. So I thought it was a little strange, but I'm like you. The arrow's going up. I think for the future, it's a good move.
And with the running back, too, it doesn't really matter if you start or not. It's a matter of how many touches is he going to get. And like you said also, are they going to have formation when they're both on the field? How many plays is he going to get on the field to make an impact? And again, that's why I go back to we don't really know their offense because I could be wrong here, but I believe the coach is there now. Connor was there before the coach, I believe.
I believe you're right.
And that being said, maybe that's not the back he wants. He was just the only one that was on the roster.
He was who was there.
Or maybe I like this player, but I need another player at that position that can do different things than Connor. So, again, it's so hard to say with these teams because you don't really know. Same thing with our first choice in Carolina. You don't really know because that's the first time, the first year coach.
He's a first year coach.
Without knowing what their system and scheme is, it's just so hard to know. But they're both definitely talented.
And that's the thing, and I'll say that about these next three guys, but I'll go ahead and say it now. You always want to bet on talent, and you always want to load your roster with as many talented guys as there are. Now, I'm also of the belief of you're investing in them as a person. So, do I want to draft a Trey Benson and have him sit for 4 years? Well, no, because that's not really the best for his personal development. And that's not what he wants, and that's not his potential. But if I think James Conner's not going to be my starting running back for 3-4 years, maybe just one more, load your team with talent because what you don't ever want is for somebody to move on. Then you go, we need a running back.
Well, good coaches figure it out.
Right,
And keep in mind, I hate to break it down and say these players are assets, but if you're being business-minded, they are. Just because you draft a player, it doesn't mean he has to play for you. You can get his value up and trade him for something else. I mean, to your point, it's about collecting talent, and especially at the running back spot. You're one injury away, or you could use a dual system, or one might be better at catching the ball out of the backfield. I mean, one could be your first and second down back, the other third down back. One's a short yardage back, one's the home run hitter. So there's always ways to figure this out.
Yeah, no, 100%. And so for those reasons, I think it's a good fit. It struck me a little strange initially, but I'm like, you know what? Let me look at it a little deeper, and then I've got a different outlook. All right, number 3 guy, Blake Corum, running back from the University of Michigan, going to the Los Angeles Rams. He had a very good college career, helped Michigan win a national title. A lot of people were pretty high on him. This one really shocked me because not only do they already have an established running back that was used as a workhorse, but Kyron Williams is only going into his 3rd year. So unlike James Conner, he's not really at the end of his career. So while I do say bet on talent, this one's a little shocking to me as well. But Thomas, what is your take on Blake Corum going to the Rams?
Mine's a lot different here. I'm not as big a fan of him as a player. He was on a good team, obviously.
Yes.
And was productive. He sets up his blocks really, really well, which if you watch
he
him
does
run,
do that. I concur.
I do like that. He runs hard.
He's got a good center of gravity, 5'8", 215-ish. Like he's
small to me, and he's not a great athlete. He's not. To me, at that size, you've got to be ultra elusive. He's elusive enough.
Yeah.
But it's not like a Tajay Spears or somebody who's going to make you miss in the open field.
Okay.
And at that size, I struggle with it. Now, I will say this, to your point, initially I thought, what a strange pick for that team because they've got some young backs already.
Yeah.
But I will say this. I trust the Rams' talent evaluation. That team's gotten a lot younger, a lot faster than people thought. People thought after they won a Super Bowl, because if you remember, they made all those trades for veteran players. They won that Super Bowl, and people said, okay, now they got their ring, but they're going to be rebuilding for the next. No, they 86.
Well, because Andrew Whitworth retired, and they like some of those guys.
But they didn't. That rebuilding process didn't happen. They know what they're doing. They rebuilt this thing on the fly pretty quickly.
They really did.
And now they're one of the younger teams in the league. They still got the bright head coach who's already been to the Super Bowl a couple of occasions.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, what I'll say about it, while I'm not as big a fan of this player and this pick for this situation, I trust the Rams enough to know, and their coach is an offensive head coach. So if he sees something, I can't ignore
tend to
that.
say, okay.
Yeah. So
okay.
of the pits so far, to me, this is the worst.
Yeah.
But I will reserve, hey, but if they're picking him, there's a reason for it.
Okay.
So I'll sit back and watch.
I can see that way of thinking. My initial thought it was just, why on earth? Because again, Kyron last year exploded onto the scene. Now, to your point, as far as building the town, they drafted Kyron Williams. He barely played as a rookie. They had Cam Akers. He had an injury, wasn't working out. They plugged Kyron Williams in, and he's one of the best running backs in the league last year. He missed 4 games with an injury, and then they had, Royce Freeman and Darrell Henderson kind of in tandem. Those guys weren't bad.
Right.
They were happy to get Kyron Williams back. So when they got Blake Corum, my first thought was, again, and I don't know how good he will be. I think Blake Corum did benefit largely from being on a very good team and a very good system. While I think he was a big part of that, if you put him somewhere where he's not surrounded and he doesn't have Roman Wilson, J.J. McCarthy, and that offensive line, how good is he really? He could have easily been a guy that put up pretty good numbers in a worse system, but wasn't like, oh, we got to draft this guy. I just don't know. Like you said, he doesn't have like the Tajay Spears, or I'll just go with the really high end, the Barry Sanders elusiveness. He's also at that height. He's not as compact and powerful as like a Maurice Jones-Drew. He's actually similar compact, but he doesn't run as powerfully.
Right.
So how good will Blake Corum be? I don't know. I think he's got a lot of potential. Anybody that started for Michigan and won a national championship, they're NFL ready, or they wouldn't have started for a program that big. And not to get too far off track, but I've been saying for years, almost anybody that starts for the University of Georgia lately, they're NFL ready. If they're ready to start for Georgia, they're pretty much ready for the NFL.
About Alabama for years.
And so some of these programs, if you start 1 year, Ohio State, look at some of the receivers they've churned out in the past few years. We talked off camera earlier about Iowa's tight ends. If you start at tight end for Iowa, guess what? You can probably start in the NFL. You're NFL ready. So for all those reasons, I think Blake Corum's got a lot of potential. Unless Kyron Williams gets injured or traded, or unless Blake Corum gets traded, I don't know what we're going to see out of that, because their coach doesn't really like to use – Sean McVay doesn't really use a tandem system. He runs with one running back because that's what he wants to do, and that's fine. So I don't know how much I don't like the fit a whole lot, because I think it's going to take an injury or a trade for them to get that kind of value out of him. But to your point earlier, they could get their value by trading him for some future draft picks or something. So he may still end up having a really good career. Don't know. This one's a weird fit for me.
Of the 3, this is the worst fit.
Yes, because I can see a path for Brooks and Benson taking over that backfield in the fairly near future. Without Kyron Williams getting injured or traded, I don't know that Blake Corum's going to do much but stay on the sidelines and be impressive in practice.
Interesting.
We'll see. But anyway, number 4, we have Jaylen Wright going to the Miami Dolphins, running back out of the University of Tennessee. This guy, if I'm not mistaken, 5'11", 210, runs about a 4.35 40. Going to the Dolphins. Talmadge, how do you feel? Is this good for the Dolphins? Is it good for Jaylen Wright?
This was a tough one for me because I didn't see Wright play very much. And I don't know as much about the player except what I've read on the internet. And I don't like to come on here and act like I'm an expert when I'm just reading what somebody else said.
When Jaylen and I had coffee and donuts last week, here's how he feels about it, man.
And so this is a tough one for me, but I will say, just by position and team, I'm scratching my head at this fit. I thought their backfield was pretty loaded already.
You could say that.
Yeah, so...
And you just did.
So for me, I'd say this is not a good fit. But again, I'm admitting I don't know the player very well, so maybe there's something that I'm missing or didn't see. So I'll defer to you on this one.
I had a similar reaction. Again, I had already looked at Blake Corum to the Rams, and then Jaylen Wright goes to the Dolphins, and I did the same thing. I was like, I get why a team wants him. 5'11", 210. He played at a SEC school, right? 4.35 speed. Okay, he seems NFL ready. Not just 4.35 speed, but he put up big numbers in college. He wasn't a guy that was like, well, He had one good game of 73 yards and 2 touchdowns, but he ran at the combine. No, he was a 1,000-yard rusher and has 4.35 speed. So, like, I get why somebody wants him. I think he could start for some teams. But when the Dolphins, to your point, who was the Jeff Wilson is already, he's their third stringer, and he's a decent running back. Then they got Raheem Mostert and Devon Ahahani. So
there it is. I was waiting.
So where does Jaylen Wright fit in? My initial thought was, what are they doing?
Why would they do that?
Why would they do that? The people don't just do things like that for no reason. They got to have some reason to be doing something like that.
We know what that means.
We know exactly what that means. We'll probably never get tired of saying it. But then I was like, okay, again, an investment into the future, I see it. Because he does fit their system. He's an explosive, fast running back that can score at any moment. Well, that does sound like what they already have. Also, Mostert and Ahahani both missed some games last year with some injuries. Let me get some water here. Something going on today.
Well, now I'm getting thirsty.
There we go. It's almost like the Ahahanis are contagious. But
vicious cycle we're in.
But both those guys did miss some games with injuries. So to have a Jaylen Wright that you can just plug in, sure, why wouldn't you want to do that? Also, Mostert just signed a 2-year extension, but he is 31 years old.
Sure.
It's really difficult to imagine they're going to offer him an extension after these next 2 years. I can almost definitively say that's just not going to happen. So 2 years from now, it may be Ahahani and Jaylen Wright as their tandem, and Jaylen Wright may be ready to just unleash at that point. So I get it for them. So why not have a guy that runs a 4.35 that you can use maybe on special teams who can play if one of those other guys gets injured, and in a couple of years, now you unleash him, and maybe he's one of the best running backs in the league by that point.
Well, and one thing here that's consistent throughout the list, I believe in all these cases, maybe not one, but in all these cases, these are offensive-minded coaches too.
Yeah.
So you never know. Offensive-minded coaches, they always want another weapon. They could have 5 receivers, but if there's a 6th one on the board, let's go get him.
And look at the way that Miami offense is built. Yeah. Obviously, Mike McDaniel loves guys that can just flat out burn Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle. These guys have been talked about. Jaylen Wright fits that. So it might have been a case where it was just too tempting.
Right.
Do we need him? No, but my goodness, I'm going to have him on my roster. I can't pass him up because I am going to invest in the talent. So for those reasons, it's not a horrible pick. But my initial thought when I'm thinking about the player, I was like, he could start somewhere, probably as a rookie. He may have to wait till year 3. But if he waits till year 3 and then he is unloaded and unleashed the way Kyron Williams was last year in year 2.
And you've increased the competition. What if these guys come in and show they're better than what you've got? And you're like, oh my God, we thought he was good.
Right.
But he's better than what we have.
He's outplaying my guys that started last
year.
And that could happen. We don't know. So there's a lot of unknowns with all this and with any rookie. But all right, the 5th and final guy on the list, MarShawn Lloyd, running back for the University of Southern California, or from the University of Southern California, now going to the Green Bay Packers. He, if I'm not mistaken, is 5'8", about 220, very strong runner, center of gravity, very powerful. The Packers, right before the draft, did sign Josh Jacobs to, I believe, a 4-year, $48 million deal. Some people are all on the habit of, he had a down year last year. He averaged like 3.6 yards a carry. He had 800 yards. Remember the year before when he led the league in rushing, it was 1,600 yards. Where is Josh Jacobs right now? There's some questions there. My initial thought, once again, here was they have Josh Jacobs, and why did they sign this guy? Because MarShawn Lloyd could start week 1 for some other teams. I just didn't know quite how I felt about it, and we'll go a little bit more into that in a moment. But Talmadge, how do you feel about MarShawn Lloyd to the Green Bay Packers?
This will tell you how much I like this player, all right? They have Josh Jacobs, and I still think it's a great fit.
Oh,
I think it's a fantastic fit. To me, he might turn out to be the most productive of all these backs. I won't say the best talent-wise, but because of the system he's in and what he brings to his skill set, to me, he might be the guy that is better than all of them when you look at his entire career. The only weakness that I see he has, and I watched him play quite a bit last year, is he's a bit of an upright runner. And especially for somebody that size.
With his size, he really needs to learn how to square them shoulders. That would help him a lot.
That concerns me a little bit. And also, while he can catch the ball at backfield, I felt like he should be even better at that than he was.
Especially the system he was in with Caleb Williams and with that USC offense.
Yeah, and he doesn't always finish his runs. But again, his size is going to be difficult to do that. Now, he's compact. So if he develops more leg strength, which I think he will and can, that might not be a problem anymore. But everything else, home run speed, acceleration and burst, makes people miss, can catch the ball. And I love their offensive-minded coach in LaFleur. I think if they drafted him, that tells me they've got ways they want to use him.
Yeah.
Jacobs, because besides Derrick Henry, most of the Alabama players, if you look at no matter position, but running back included, they get used up quite a little bit in college. And when they come to the pros, they played in that physical league, it takes years off of them when they come.
They've already got years taken off of them.
And especially at running back, I just don't know if Josh Jacobs is ever going to be what he was 2 years ago.
You're not sure how much he has left.
Now, they think he is, obviously, because they gave him the money.
They're paying him to still be there.
I'm kind of contradicting myself. But this might be an insurance policy, and it wouldn't surprise me if not this year, but the next year he takes the starting job. I'm that high on him, especially in this offense. Can't wait to see what he'll do. If I get a chance to draft him in fantasy, I'm doing it in a later round.
And we are going to be in a league together this year, so I'm going to have to keep that in mind, Talmadge.
I gave myself away. I hate this guy. I hate him. I can't.
It's all been a smoke screen, Jared. You draft MarShawn Lloyd.
No, but, so to me, because they have Jacobs, I can't give it a 10 on a scale of 1 to 10.
Right.
But I'm giving it an 8.
Giving it a 9?
8, somewhere in the 8, 9 range. Yeah, to me, he's got a chance to be really, really good.
While I agree with all of your points, I'm still a little torn. Because I think all the things you named about what's good about his game, I saw that in college too. I was like, this guy could start right away somewhere. This is an interesting landing spot because of the fact that they signed Josh Jacobs. But the way they use their running backs, I do think he fits that system really well. I could see him being a great running back in that Green Bay Packers system. If MarShawn Lloyd stays there long term, yes, I think he could arguably be the most productive. Because with all these guys, there's question marks. When are they going to get that opportunity? And with MarShawn, it may be a little longer. I don't know if I see him taking over the backfield next year, but he might. I'm not saying that he couldn't, because will we see Josh Jacobs from 2 years ago ever again? Will we see what we saw last year? Is moving to the Packers going to be the change he needed to get back to the form he was in? They obviously drafted Lloyd as an insurance policy and / a look ahead to the future. By next year, we might see kind of a split. Or maybe MarShawn does take over. I don't necessarily expect that, but I think the talent's there to where we can't rule that out.
As you know, I'm a Titan fan, and I'll put this akin to...
You've told me that before.
and of course, we have noise from the background.
We have our Chiefs fan in the background here.
But the situations were a little different because Derrick Henry was in the last year of his deal when they drafted Tajay Spears, and they just signed Jacobs, so it's the first year of his deal. So I know it's not a perfect scenario, but Derrick Henry was still the Tennessee Titans' lead back last year.
Oh, yeah.
Tajay Spears still had 800-plus yards from scrimmage, okay? They found a way to use him. So if you're taking carries away from Derrick Henry, why can't this guy take carries away from Josh Jacobs?
That's they can still
both
point.
Be effective.
Yeah, that's a very valid point. So, all right, well, that's our outlook for 5 running backs in what was deemed a weak running back class. But each of these guys, I think we made the point, if they get the opportunity, could have pretty good careers. Will all of them? We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah.
But they've all got potential to at least be solid. Some of them may be Hall of Fame running backs. I'm not going to say that there's not 1 or 2 on this list if they get the right opportunity. Well, thank you all so much for stopping by. Once again, I hope you did enjoy the content. If you did like it, show it by clicking the like button. There's also something else you can do if you haven't already, and we've mentioned this before. You could subscribe to the channel. It will enable me to continue bringing you this type of content as well as many others and alert you when new episodes are available. Now, if you agree or disagree with our assessment on these running backs, you think one of them is worthless, you think Blake Corum's the best running back you've ever seen, tell us in the comments. I'd love to hear about it. I want you to say what you think. Is Jonathan Brooks never going to start for the Panthers?
Well, I only want them commenting if they agree with me. So we're a little different there.
So if you agree with Talmadge, tell us in the comments. And if you don't, tell me in the comments. Just, we'll be okay. We've had people disagree. When we did the Bruce Lee episode, somebody told you, guys, talk sensibly. You talk about Brandon Lee fighting his own dad. You can disagree. It's all right. Let's just all be cool how we play together, right? But anyway, thank you all so much for stopping by. For Talmadge Roger Varnado III, I am Jared Johnson, the Jared J. I hope y'all have a great week, and I hope I see you again real soon.